Okay, let's bring in a rise analyst, Dr. Sam Amadi, to discuss the growing insecurity in Nigeria and how much impact the Africa-Turkey summit will have on the regional challenge. Very warm evening to you.
Thank you.
Now, let's look at the president's statement. He still feels that the government is atop the security situation in the country, and they've decimated Boko Haram, of course, as his spokesman or the Nigeria's information minister would always say, and that they're only hitting soft targets.
Well, that's what the president should say. I mean, he don't expect him to go abroad or anywhere and say, look, we are struggling. But that's not the view of his countrymen. The view of his countrymen who are every day facing the threat of being killed, kidnapped, is that maybe, yes, we may have technically said that we have decapitated them, but the critical issue is that they are extracting huge, damage to the nation. 800 people killed in about 6 months or so, including security officers. The president traveled at the time that the news of the honorable member was killed. People are kidnapped and killed. And so the question is not whether we have decapitated. The question is that they are hitting us hard. Whether it's soft target. I mean, by the way, the nature of terrorism is not that they're going to face you in one combat and then defeat a country and annex you and take over. It is that they make life ungovernable. They take territories and terrorize them. And communities are actually paying, reportedly paying taxes to terrorists to survive, to farm. So critically, I think the summit, yes, Turkey has some experience with dealing with terrorism. They have experience with dealing with fundamentalism for decades. And so, no doubt, Turkey will provide some hardware and software to support Nigeria. And Turkish government has, in a bid to, of course, exert more influence globally, is also trying to, show that they have the capacity to be a major player within the region and globally.
Absolutely.
So that helps them, but doubtful whether it really will impact in a new strategy, in a much more, control, defeat of these terrorists. And like they said, Raja said, these people, we see the video, the faces, no arrests, no trials. So the question is, how do we intend to contain terrorism if we're not really decapitating the sponsors and the architects and taking to trial? Because the idea of trial is actually to you have to dramatize the defeat of a terror group through public trial. So people see the faces, see the state, take them custody and imprison them. It is incentive for the
Well, Dr. Amadi, you're talking about strategies, but that's up to our security chiefs in the country, really. But President Buhari is one in 16 heads of states that are currently in Ankara attending this particular summit. And something that the Turkish president said that was critical, which I want to get your thoughts on. He says for a continent that has over 1.3 billion people, not to have one member at the Security Council is critical. Do you think if we have an African country as part of the top echelon when it comes to the Security Council in the world, this would actually shed more spotlight on the insecurity challenges currently bedeviling the continent, not just Nigeria?
This has been a battle. I mean, at a point, Nigeria and South Africa and Egypt were candidates for 2 spots at the Security Council table. It didn't happen. Now, yes, symbolically, Africa, the security. But by the way, don't forget that issues don't get to the Security Council daily. Issues around governance, economic development, vaccine equity are not going to go to the Security Council. Security Council is a place where you discuss when there's almost a breakdown of security. So it helps. Nigeria deserves to, Africa deserves, particularly Nigeria. But that does not, I think it's strange that this is coming up now. We are talking about critical things like vaccine equity. We're talking about even more aid to support Africa. We're talking about more inclusion in real governance bodies global, the United Nations reform that stopped. So yes, we need to be at the Security Council, but some people say, but wait a minute, how often does Security Council, in normal governance, global rule-making processes, whether the WTO, whether the other specialized agencies, how much does Security Council play on daily basis? So I think, yes, we should be there, but that's not really the big thing for Africa now. Is in the Sahel, is how do we head off this level of insecurity, this almost total collapse of statehood in some parts of Africa and ungovernable territories. How do we deal with economic challenges by going through a headwind of this COVID impact, low vaccination, low vaccine production, poor economy? Those are issues Africa should be grappled. And by the way, going to Ankara or going to Tokyo or going to all these summits, Africa, Europe, they may look nice, but really, that's not how Asia got it right. They stayed home, thought together and implemented strategies. And once you become a respectable continent in terms of economic development, good governance, in terms of managing disease and poverty, the world will begin to take it serious. So this African pilgrimage to either Tokyo, London, China, everybody's now having African summit. That's really pathetic.
Turkey has made promises in terms of vaccines, so we look forward to that, not just in Nigeria.
You don't need a summit to make those promises, by the way.
Okay, very quickly, let's look at the president's plea about the Green Wall and the climatic conditions, particularly where you look at the Sahel. Absolutely. It's really drying up. And I remember the Paris summit, COP26 and the rest, pledges were made, particularly with the drying Sahara deserts, damming the Congo River, you understand, to help reflect water there. What are your thoughts here?
I think the president, when he came to power, was great on the Green Wall. The former Minister of Environment, who is not a Deputy Secretary General, was strong on that. But we've not seen much being done since then. Desert encroachment, all those, but again, don't forget, the global countries, the leaders of the developed countries, will always fall short of their commitment. They always fall short, whether it's in terms of climate financing, whether in terms of transfer, IDAs, they will come short. It's for us to help ourselves and take seriously the issue of desert encroachment, issues of the Green Wall, and of course other environmental crises affecting Africa, which is like a double whammy: poverty, environmental crisis, and bad governance.
It also leads to the high level of insecurity. Absolutely. But Turkey has also promised that they would sell weapons to Nigeria, just like what they're doing to Ethiopia and Morocco. Hopefully that helps us as well.
Hope so too.
All right, thanks very much. Dr. Sam Amadi is an associate professor of law and a rising news analyst for coming on Newsnight.